When you hang around the barber shop for a while, you might as well soon or later get yourself a haircut. When you hang around a group of drug addicts, you might as well get yourself the first needle or the first joint. And so does that apply to the story of porn. Morning, guys. Afternoon, evening. Beautiful empaths, each and everyone around the world. You're most welcome to my page. Name is Denzamos Unscripted. I've talked about so many subjects over the last couple of months, and including the law of attraction, including breakups, including relationships, twin flames, soulmates, lots and lots of different subjects. And then I realized that there's something I never talked about. As I pursue my journey of breaking empaths free, I realized that I cannot break empaths free without addressing the issue of porn, because it's also one of those addictions that, gets so many of us entrapped and trapped, and get so many of us, we get into these kind of addictions that at a later stage in time we don't know what to do with ourselves. So in this special subject today, I'm going to talk about porn. And the story goes like that. Well, when I was a young kid in school, sweet 16, sweet 17, sweet 15, those ages, you're in school, very innocent. And you're just learning to discover about, you're discovering life, you're discovering about yourself, you're discovering, you're getting to know about your sexuality, or, we're growing up, so young kids. Then you notice that you're in class, and there's a guy next to you watching a certain magazine. In those times there used to be those magazines, the Playboys and all those, whatever, Playboys and all those kind of sexual magazines. So you pick interest in that. You get very curious, and you want to know what's going on. So you pick interest, and some way or the other, your friend next to you might pass you a magazine, and for the first time, around that age, young age, sweet tender age, you're going to probably get an encounter with your first pornography magazine. So the journey starts now. That's where the journey starts. So one magazine, you get excited, you watch it, you're so interested, you get excited. The next day, another guy hands you over the next magazine, another Playboy and another Playboy and another Playboy. So you keep on and on getting excited with this whole pornography magazines. So you go somewhere, visit a friend, you find him watching a pornographic movie. You want to join in. You're very excited, so you want to join in. So you start. So that journey now starts like that. It starts very slowly, and it starts developing, and the urge keeps on increasing. You find pictures of magazines. You find pictures. When I was in school, we used to find drawings everywhere on the walls. People used to draw all imagery of sexual imagery on the walls, and So I grew up in a boarding school, so it was a kind of situation whereby we didn't have that moment of that we didn't get exposed. We weren't exposed to women, so we didn't study with women. So it was a single-sex school. It was a boarding school. It was a single-sex school. Now, at that tender age, that's when we start to encounter, like in my situation, that's when I started to encounter all these pornography magazines, pornography videos, sex movies, this and that. And that then it started like a joke. So, but then later on you realize that as the time goes on, you become more and more and more and more addicted. Now, this addiction didn't start as a problem. It started as an excitement, as a sort of entertainment. But all I didn't know it was that it's starting to grow as some sort of an addiction. I was a very young guy. So later on, uh, I started to get anxious. So I started to get anxious. I started to be very, very anxious about sex. All these sex issues. I didn't know about sex before, but when I started engaging in pornographic material like magazines, porn mags, videos, movies, sex movies, that's when the addiction started to grow. So now in school, it started to be some kind of a problem because I realized that actually I could not concentrate because sometimes you're in school, you're watching, the teacher is teaching you something, and then for some reason, there's a guy with the magazine under the table, so the face is on the focus. One side of you is focused on the teacher, one side of you focused on the magazine, so you get that kind of distraction. So the first problem I got with porn was that I realized that I was losing concentration in school. So when I lose concentration in school, definitely you end up like you lose all your focus. So you don't have the ability to focus and concentrate in whatever you're studying. So definitely you're going to have poor marks and poor results. So it was a time where I was having some time of very bad performance in school. Second effect I discovered in porn was that it led me to very, very intensive feelings of lust. So you get lust because remember I was in a boarding school and we're only guys, so we're only men, so we didn't have like uh, encounters with women. We just always studied with men, and so I ended up getting very, 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 very anxious, and feeling that feeling of excessive lust, and then one thing started to lead to the other. So from lust came anxiety. Very, very anxious. You just get anxiety for nothing because when you have that thing whereby you have lust, so you want to mate, you want to be with a woman, but you don't have that opportunity, you don't have the chance, so you start getting anxiety. So from anxiety you go to masturbation. You know what I mean? So because somehow you have to face your fears, and you have to face your sexual desires, and you have to find a way of satisfying yourself. So one thing started leading to the other, and eventually was masturbation. So true life story, guys. From that, now from learning to watching magazines to watching movies, sexual movies, pornographic magazine, then to lust, then to anxiety, then to masturbation, losing concentration in schools. You don't perform well because all the time you have all this sexual imagery in your subconscious, and they are playing back in your mind, so you cannot focus on anything. You know what I mean? So it was a very tough time, in that age when I was growing up. And later on, I met my first girlfriend. When I left school, I left my first girlfriend. I met my first girlfriend. So that was about around, I think I was around 18 or 19 years of age, around that time. Met my first girlfriend. And then I realized that a few days, weeks down the road, I realized that actually I didn't have all that much sexual appetite. You know what I mean? There was not much sexual appetite, and I didn't have that feeling to engage in real sex. At the time I couldn't understand what it was, and I couldn't figure it out very well. But I just realized that there was some reason that I wasn't really interested in engaging of course you would one way or the other you would engage. I would engage in real sex, but then I wouldn't like have that the feeling of engaging in real sex, you know what. So I didn't know where the whole thing was coming from. But then I realized when I was by myself, I was very much interested in watching porn. But when it came to the real thing, you have a girlfriend, you need to engage in real sexual acts or in real official sexual acts. Sexual acts, you couldn't do that. You could do it, but then even the performance was not all that good, and it wasn't all that real. So because you have all this imagery running up in your head. So the addiction went on and on and on. And also realized in school that because it was a school of boys, it was a single school, so single sex school. So I realized that actually there were some guys in school who had actually started engaging in cases of homosexuality, because one way or the other they have to satisfy themselves, and they have to face their lusts, and they have to face their sexual desires. So one way or the other they ended up engaging in cases of homosexuality. I've had so many cases like that. So there were so many things involved with pornography, and in one way or the other, it's not such a good thing to to get used to. It's not a good thing to get used to, because when your subconscious starts recording all this imagery of pornography, that's when your life starts to run and to turn upside down. And sometimes you may not know the real reason why. So, and all those things start adding up. Masturbation, the lust, the anxiety, the loss of concentration, you lose sexual appetite. Even when you have a real girlfriend, you lose your sexual appetite, you don't want to engage in real sex. So, the story goes on and on and on for each and every one of us. And because I'm very sure that each and every one of us has got that moment whereby they were very much excited and engaged in pornographic material, whether it was a magazine, whether it was a movie, whether it was all those kind of drawings, pictures, and whatever. So each one and every one of us, at least at one point in our lifetimes, we have encountered that situation whereby we found ourselves getting addicted to pornography. So later on, when I grew up, when the years went by, I started growing up. I started to discover that some things were changing about me. I was like, I was not able to understand exactly what was happening. But then I realized actually that there was this addiction going on in my subconscious. So then I started making discoveries. Later on, when I kept on growing up, I discovered that actually this whole pornography thing was an illusion. You know what I mean? So there was nothing real in that thing. There was nothing real, because most of those things we used to see in magazines, those people were just putting on an act. They were putting up an act. You know what I mean? They were just putting up appearances and putting up an act. So there was nothing actually real. So that whole thing of pornography was an illusion. So it was like a stage. Everything was a stage. There was nothing real. I discovered that pornography was not real. And most of these people who are doing all those kind of things, like in movies or whatever, or shooting, those models we used to see in those Playboy magazines when I was in school, all those guys were doing it for the money. So those are the things we didn't know at that time. But later on, during the later stage, when you grow up, you start to realize that actually all those things are just an illusion. There's nothing real out there. They were just like putting up appearances, and because most of those people, even when they're going to make the photos, and when they're going to do the photo shoots and all that, they're doing some sort of makeups, and so the whole thing was fake. You know what I mean? I also realized that pornography, one way or the other, as a man, I find it devaluing. It devalues women. You know what I mean? It devalues women, and it brings that thing of whereby men start to look at women as sex objects. You know what I mean? So men just start to, look at when you say nice woman, whether I don't know the definition of nice to you, but any woman you see in the streets moving by or walking by, you just think that it's just another sex object. You know what I mean? Because that whole thing brainwashes you to think that all women we see around us, they're sex objects. So we stop to give women value. So we start to devaluate women. Those are some of the discoveries, the big discoveries I discovered as I grew up and as I was starting to confront this addiction. Then that's when also I came across the fact that I realized actually that in most of those things, those pornographic materials that we used to watch, magazines or DVDs or movies we used to watch in that time, most of the time there was no protection involved. So most of those people were not protected. So who knows what was going on behind the curtains? Who knows what was going on when they were off stage? Who knows whether they were contracting STDs or HIV or these other sexually transmitted diseases? Who knows about that? Yeah, because I was watching a documentary sometime before I watched the documentary, and one of those porn stars was talking. And I think she had HIV. So she was like talking to the media about her experience in the porn industry and, what she went through, all these STDs. Because sometimes they would find themselves sleeping with so many partners just because they want to do a certain movie. They want to shoot a movie. So they were just doing it for the stage. You know what I mean? For the stage, for the money, for the fame, like just to become famous because they wanted to be recognized as a porn star, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, behind the scenes, these people, they are ending up with diseases, sicknesses, HIV, all these STDs, gonorrhea, syphilis, all these kind of things. So the life wasn't greener anyway. Whatever they were doing, even for the money or what, they would become millionaires, but at the end of the day, it would get away with their life. So as I started to discover all those facts that were behind those porn magazines and videos that I used to watch, those things that actually caused me and actually many of us to get some sort of addiction, I started to see that this whole thing it wasn't real. So that is when I started to find ways how to break the addiction. So what I noticed is that I figured out I tried so many ways because, when you get addicted to something, it's like, for example, when somebody is addicted to drugs. So when they're trying to live or to break free from drugs, they have to go through some sort of rehabilitation. They have to go to some sort of rehabilitation center whereby, they are helped with this addiction so that they can break free. So I struggled around to get to, to break free from porn addictions and all that. And then all I had to do, the first thing that actually might have helped me, and I think what could help some guys out there. I know so many people out there, even the guys watching me right now. There are so many of us out there who are still struggling with porn. When you just get in your house, the first thing you get is your phone, and you're just trying to go to those porn sites. At the end of the day, just watching porn, and you are doing what. So at the end of the day, the more porn you watch is the more they produce. Because when you watch that porn on the phones or on your computers or what, so you are actually promoting these guys who are producing that porn. So they'll just keep on making more and more and more of it. You know what I mean? So the thing cannot stop. One way or the other, we have to start breaking the habit. So when you start breaking the habits, definitely those guys will lose the customers because eventually nobody's going to watch. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, they're going to stop producing. You know what I mean? And the whole thing is going to come back to order. So what I did to break that habit, I deleted all the Google apps search engines. Things that I knew that, for example, when I get to the phone, I may just get I may just get, I may just find myself Googling and searching new porn sites or something like that. So the only thing I had to do is that, first of all, I had to delete most of those search engines. The search engines, first of all, I had to get away for a certain period of time from the search engines, Google, and all these internet browsers. I just deleted everything from my phone. And it helped me and it worked. So if you're watching me right now and you have that addiction, the porn addiction, you might want to use one of those tricks. It might help you, it might or may not, but it's just what I've taken you through my journey. So if it has worked for me, it might work for you as well. So then also another thing, I developed new habits. So I started breaking cycles. So for example, if I was used to a certain routine during the day, like getting up and you have a certain routine you're doing throughout the day. So you break that routine and start with a new one. So for example, you'll be getting up at 9 or getting up at 11 or getting up at 10. So you start to break this, like the routine. The time of getting up, so you start to breaking up, you get up, like, for example, at 6 or for example at 7. and, you know, do some activities, you know, maybe you go for a walk, maybe you go for a jog, maybe make sure yourself busy, you know what I mean? So breaking a cycle can also be a way that can help you to break away from porn and, you know, to break the addiction, you know, because at the end of the day, porn is not good for everyone. For each and every one of us, it's a really bad habit and it's very addictive. So those are the two ways I used to break away. To break away from porn. And on my page, for quite some months now, I've dedicated my page to break empaths free. But also empaths. It's not all about empaths, it's all about, you know, everybody. I've specifically dedicated the page to empaths, but of course, there are so many people out there who will benefit from the information and the materials I'm giving out here. But well, one or two of you, or three of you guys out there might have this addiction, and they could be struggling to break away from porn, and they don't know how to do it because, you know, you just find yourself that you just can't get away from porn. Every time you get your phone, you just want to watch some new porn styles or new porn imagery and all that kind of thing. So you might use one or two things from me, and you might want to consider deleting all these Google things, all this porn imagery from materials from your phone, all these search engines that will entice you to start Googling up new information about porn. You might want to delete all those. And also you might want to break your cycle. If you've been used to sitting down in your bedrooms or locking yourself in the bedrooms and watching porn, you may try to want to break the cycle and introduce something new to your life, like going for the gym or going to the swimming or going to, you know, you develop new habits. And at the end of the day, you're going to realize that actually it's going to work for you. You know what I mean? So that's all I want to talk about today, guys. It was a sexuology subject today. I've never done actually a sexuology video on my page, but I just thought that the more open we start getting out there, when we drop our egos and we start speaking without ego, is a lot of people can get inspired out there, because so many people are struggling. I know so many people. I have a lot of friends struggling with porn, and, you know, they are struggling with addiction. So it's not a good thing, but at the end of the day, you can always get away, and you can always break the habit, and you can always break the addiction. Guys, been a blessing to have you on board. I love you all. Stay blessed. Peaceful, blissful Monday and the rest of the week. Love you all. Bye.